Campbell, are you still signed in? Okay. It shows that you signed in and then left and then came back in and then left and then left. So I was just making sure. Okay, so for number 9, what are we looking at that's drawn inside of that circle? What type of a triangle? Okay, so if it's a right triangle, which angle is the 90-degree angle? Okay, so we know that this is 90 degrees and we know that's 64. So can we figure out this angle here? Okay, so what would that angle be? All right, and if we know the angle measure, what we're looking for is the arc that's formed right here, right? And angle A is what forms that arc. So what do we do? Yes, we're going to multiply that by 2, and that's what you get. So on number 7, what are we solving for? Okay, so since we're looking for arc VU, we have to see what we can figure out about the picture, right? So if we look at the picture, let's see, angle U is 30 degrees, right? So what does that make this arc over here? Arc VT. All right, so if it's 60, what is this arc here? TU. Yeah, it's 180 because it's a semicircle, right? Because it's formed by this segment, TU, that goes all the way through the center of the circle. So then if we know this much of the outside of the circle, how do we figure out the rest? Yep. Okay, Isabel, so for number, 28, not 18. Okay, hold on. Okay, so for 27 and 28, we have a quadrilateral inscribed inside this circle, okay? So what we know about quadrilaterals that are inscribed inside of a circle is that the opposite angles have to be supplementary. And do you remember what supplementary means? Yes. So for 27, your opposite angles here have to equal 180. And then your opposite angles here have to equal 180, right? Okay, so we can figure out y pretty easily, right? Okay, so if we know that y is 66, because we did 180 minus 114 gives us 66, we just need to solve for x. So now if we look at x, x is this angle here, and it forms this big arc here, MLK, which is 52 plus 80, right? That's what the arc measure is. So 52 plus 80 is 132 degrees. So that's going to tell us if we know the angle measure, then we would multiply by 2 to get the arc measure. So in this case, we know the arc measure, so we have to divide by 2 to get the angle measure. So if we know the arc is 132, then 132 divided by 2 gives us the angle measure. Make sense? You're welcome. So that's for 27. 28, you'll work in a similar way. So take a look at that and see if you can figure that one out now, seeing how to work 27, okay? Yeah, 15 on the bookwork is going to be similar to that. You'll have to kind of figure out the arc and then go from there for what to set it equal to. Charlotte Ann, number 11 on the bookwork or worksheet? Okay, hold on. Okay, so number 11 on the worksheet, Charlotte Ann, is you're supposed to find the angle of QNP. Okay, so that is this little angle here. Now, in order to do that, we have to kind of look at the diagram as a whole and see what we can come up with. If you look at this line, NMP, okay, NP, what is that line? Yeah, it's the diameter. So since we know that that's the diameter, what's the measure of this arc in QP? But what's the measure of it? Okay, it's 180. So if we know that that's 180 all the way around, can we figure out what just this little section is here? And then if you know what that arc is, if the arc, okay, so the arc is 62. Now can you go backwards and figure out what the angle is? There you go. So let's see, you also said number 21. Give me just a second, I'll pull that up. Okay, so if we look at the diagram on 21, Charlotte Ann, what do we know about any of the angles on that shape? Do we know any measures for them? Okay, so what do those right angles equal? All right, so if these two equal 90 degrees, do we know what this angle and this angle equal? Yes, with a question. We don't really know what those two equal individually, but we do know that this is a quadrilateral, right? It's got 4 sides. So what do we know the total interior angles have to add up to? No, not 180. This is where you use that formula, n minus 2 times 180. Number of sides minus 2 times 180. Okay, so all of those angles on the inside have to add up to 360. And in order to be able to circumscribe a circle, which means draw a circle around it, where all of the vertices touch the circle, our opposite angles have to be supplementary. Well, we know that these two are supplementary, right? And then if all 4 angles inside this shape have to equal 360, these two already equal 180. That leaves us with 180 left. So we know that these two are supplementary also, yes? So that means this one could be circumscribed. We could have a circle drawn around that one. You're welcome. And then Campbell number 11 on the bookwork. Okay, Campbell, so you don't need 11 on the bookwork? Okay, so 11 on the bookwork. We have to name two pairs of congruent angles, right? So what do we know about the angles that are shown in this diagram? We know that angle J makes arc ML, right? Do you see another angle that also forms arc ML? Okay, so we could say that MJL and angle MKL are congruent, right? Because if they form the same arc, they have to be congruent. And then now look at the other side. Okay, what about this angle here? Angle JMK. It makes arc JK. Do you see another angle that makes that arc too? Okay, that's right. Does that make sense? And then what number on the worksheet? There's not a 36. $26. Okay, hold on. Okay, so Campbell, if you look at number 26 and we're looking at angle X, okay, what arc does that angle form? So can we calculate a measure for that arc? And if you know the measure of the arc can you then find the measure of the angle that makes that arc? There you go. And then to find the measure of angle y, you know this is a quadrilateral inscribed inside of a circle. So in order for it to be inscribed in the circle, opposite angles have to be what? Yes, supplementary. So if they're supplementary, that means they add to 180. So if you know the measure of angle x, we can calculate y because we know they have to equal 180. You're welcome. Abby, you're quiet over there. You have questions? Let me pull it up, okay? Hang on. Okay, so if we look at number 15, we have a quadrilateral inscribed inside the circle, right? And we have some arc measures on the outside of the circle too, yes? Now, can we figure out, just to make things easy, can we figure out what this arc JK is? Do you see how to figure it out, Abby? Yeah, that's right. So arc JK is 66 degrees, okay? Now we have the whole outside of the circle labeled, okay? So now let's look at those angles on the inside. So this angle here, angle L, goes out like this, and it forms, let me change colors. It forms this arc from M to J to K. Do you see it? So since it forms that arc, and we know the measure of the arc, right? The measure of that arc is going to be 66 plus 54, which is 120. Now, when we have an angle, remember that's on the circle, not on the center of the circle, but on the circle, like the angle L there, it equals 1/2 of the measure of the arc, right? So if we take the measure of the arc, which is 120, and divide that by 2, it should give us angle L, which is 3A. Does that make sense? So then we can solve for A that way. Now for the other side, I'm going to erase those, okay? This angle, angle M, is formed by these lines, right? And it makes this arc here, JKL. So can we calculate the measure of that arc? Yep, 176. And remember, if we know the measure of the arc, we divide that by 2. That'll give us the measure of the angle, which in this case, our angle is 4B. So then we can just solve for B. You're welcome. You girls are like rapid fire. Bam, bam, bam. All right, let's see, Megan. 32 on practice A, 9 on the bookwork. Okay, so 32 on the worksheet. Let me pull that up quickly. Okay, so for 32, you're making a stained glass ornament shown at the right. The kite is symmetric, so angle A equals angle C. Okay, so mark your picture. A equals C. BD is the diameter of the circle. Okay, so we know that goes through the center of the circle, right? And the measure of angle D is 60 degrees. So what it wants to know is what are the measures of A, B, and C. Now, if we look at the picture, we know angle D is 60 degrees. So could we calculate the arc that that angle forms? Okay, so what would it be? Yeah, it's 120. So if this part's 120, what's this part? $240. So that would be the part that's formed by angle B, right? So if that's 240, then can we calculate the measure of angle B? $120. Another way we could have done it is to say, we know that these angles have to be supplementary. So they have to add up to 180. So we could have just done 180 minus 60. Gives you 120 for that angle. And then we know for A and C, okay, we know that the interior angles there inside that kite have to add up to what? Well, all of them have to add up to 360. Okay, so we know 2 of them are 120 and 60, right? So that leaves us with 180 degrees left. Yeah, divide by 2 because A and C are congruent. Does that make sense? Okay. Let's see. So we've got 8 and 9 on the bookwork now and 14 on the worksheet. Let me go ahead and pull up 14 real quick since it's on this same page that I'm on. Okay, Charlotte, and so for 14, we're looking at angle NMO. Okay, so we're going NMO. Sorry, I got a little crazy there with my drawing. Now, have you already calculated anything around any other arcs around the outside of your circle? So do you have a measure for QP yet? Okay. Now, do you have a measure for NO or can you calculate a measure for NO? All right. So it's 112. Now, we're trying to calculate or trying to figure out this angle here. And we know this arc out here is 112. Now, this angle is a central angle because it's on the center of the circle, right? Okay, Campbell, for number 8, you need to find arc WX. So you have one arc of the circle. Do you have information that lets you figure out another arc on that circle? And then if you figure that one out, are you able to figure out the third one? Okay. All right, so Megan, number 9. So if we look at this one, it wants us to find 2 ways to correct the error. So if we look here, let's look at this 45-degree angle. What would the measure of this arc be? Arc RS. Okay, so if it's 90, what's arc QR? Like around the top. Well, it should be 180 because it should be a semicircle, right? Because this QR here goes through the center of the circle, it's the diameter. So that's what our error is. It's either that this is not 100 or that this is not 45. Does that make sense? Okay. Campbell, 12 is going to be just like 11 that we did together. Okay, good.